ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930 present The Drive.
It is Monday, March 13th. The Drive begins now on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. Thanks for starting off your week with me. I'm here until 6 o'clock, and we're going to get your phone calls in. We usually do text on days it's me in the studio by myself, so text line is open today, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. You can also find me on Twitter at Paul Swann. Today is the, I don't know, is this the, we all try to get over the fact that Marshall didn't get an NIT bid, which I think a lot of us saw coming. Some of us maybe did not, but I think for the most part, a lot of us saw that coming, and if you didn't, I thought I spelled it out pretty well last week. I thought I spelled it out pretty well, why Marshall wouldn't get an NIT bid. Now, I saw a lot of conspiracy theories yesterday about why Marshall did not get an NIT bid, and I'm not really subscribing to any of those. The whole West Virginia's athletic director is on the committee did not ring really true to me. I don't think that really matters. I think you look at Marshall's resume, you see how Marshall finished out the regular season, and you see Marshall's resume against quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4, and I think that explains itself. The net ranking wasn't high enough, unfortunately, for Marshall. It was okay. It was an okay net ranking. 83. As of yesterday, the net ranking was 83. And so the Thundering Herd losing the last two games against quadrant 3 teams. We could get into all of this again. We're just not going to. I don't think we're going to look at this resume. I just don't think we're going to go over this again. If we do, that's fine. I'll do it with you. But Marshall did not get into the NIT. So the next thing, and then I watched the thing. 10 o'clock, I tuned in just like the most Marshall fans ever, I'm sure, tuned into this thing. Watched it. It was quick. Brackets were announced. Okay, Marshall didn't get in. And so now, what happens next? Well, after that, you had the CBI and the so-called pay-to-play brackets. Now, if you follow me on Twitter, after the NIT bracket was announced, I wanted to follow up. So I corresponded briefly with Marshall's athletic director, Christian Spears, and he said to me when I inquired, he said that we will not be playing in a pay-for-play. We are an NCAA or NIT program. That will be our goal. That's what he said to me yesterday when I messaged him, asked him, what's the opportunities look like afterwards. So now Marshall is drawing the line at the NIT. He did add that he's disappointed for the team and that so many of those teams would not want to play Marshall. He feels really good about Marshall, feels good about the program, disappointed that the NIT was not a landing spot for the Thundering Herd in postseason play. Sun Belt got one team in the NCAA tournament, the automatic qualifier, and then one team in the NIT, which was Southern Miss, which got an auto bid based on it winning the regular season, which Marshall had an opportunity to win. It came down to Marshall controlled its own fate. Marshall had an opportunity to win, but lost to Old Dominion 71-67, and that right there, that killed the Herd's chances. And honestly, if you look back at the season, you lose against James Madison, which I thought was a good team. You get that win back, but I don't want to circle Louisiana Monroe as the reason why you didn't win the regular season crown. You had some opportunities here. You still had an opportunity to win this thing. So Marshall does not advance. Do you think that's the right call from Christian Spears to go ahead and just say, look, if we don't get an invite to the NIT, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. We're not jumping into the CBI, which that's at Daytona Beach. That's not even going to be at a home school. And then the tournament that's now taken over for the CIT, which I was not a fan of in the first place. Of all the tournaments, I'm not a big fan of the basketball classic. Not a big fan of that one. I know Marshall played in it. Marshall won it. Marshall won the CIT. The CIT doesn't even exist anymore. So Marshall won a tournament championship in a tournament that has been rebranded. At least the CBI is still the CBI. Has a little more prestige to it. Little more. Absolutely a little more. Compared to the basketball classic. No, the NIT has prestige. The NIT has tradition. The NIT has value. Is it where you want to be? No, you want to be an NCAA team. You want to play in the NCAA tournament. Ask North Carolina. North Carolina could have been in the NIT, decided, no, we're good. And that still didn't open the door for the Thundering Herd, with North Carolina deciding not to go. I know I would love to see it's not going to happen because it's just not how it works, but I'd love to see a last four in or a first four out of the NIT. I don't think we're going to get into that kind of bracketology with this thing. So unfortunately, disappointing. Yeah, it's really disappointing. But I think it's the right call, at least as far as not going to the CBI or going to the basketball classic. It's the right call in my mind. I don't see the value. I don't see what do you gain from it other than you get to see the Herd play again? And the CBI, you'd have to go to Daytona Beach if you want to actually see the team in person. So you'd be watching it on TV. And for a lot of Herd fans, that would have been good enough. And then you got the basketball classic, and really you're pairing up with teams. I don't know if you want to really get into that. You look at some of those teams, and I'm not saying that there are. I'm not saying that they're bad teams in here. It's just I don't know if I want to get into that. So just remember, it's good to have goals. It's good to have standards. It's good to have ambitions. It's good to have. Honestly, it's good to have a standard that you want to hit, and you don't want to go below that standard. I'm with it completely. So, do you still think, though, it's a good idea for Marshall to not play in one of these? Or are you on the other side of this argument and saying, look, this should happen? Marshall should have been in this thing. Look at the NIT. I would have been happy with an NIT bid if Marshall would have been so fortunate to receive an NIT bid. Hey, Rutgers and Hofstra, okay, those are solid. Michigan, Toledo, UAB, Southern Miss. Southern Miss didn't even get a home game. Here's the thing. Southern Miss didn't even get a home game. The regular season conference champions of the Sun Belt going on the road to take on UAB. UAB got a 4 seed. What do you think about that? There's no love whatsoever for the Sun Belt, right? No respect here. That the regular season champions are going on the road to play against UAB. And then Toledo didn't even get any love. Toledo, of course, Toledo's going on the road to take on Michigan. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. And of course, Morehead State got to go take on number 1 seed Clemson in this thing. They're excited. Morehead's excited. I got the press release on that today for Morehead. And it's actually, believe it or not, it's the first time. This is going to be the 12th postseason berth in program history for Morehead State, which surprised me. I thought it might have been more, to be honest with you. And this is the first time that NIT and Morehead State have come together, which was interesting. I would have thought that Morehead State would have been in the NIT a few more times, but not the case. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. As we head to break, first text in today, it was hard to see Marshall beat 3 games. I'm going to edit on the fly. It was hard to see Marshall beat 3 teams that are invited to the NIT, one of them Morehead State, by 24 points. Well, you look at that, and then you got to remember that Morehead State won the right to be in the NIT, if you can call it that. Morehead State is an auto invite. Morehead State did what it needed to do to win its regular season and then did not win the tournament. So Morehead State gets to go in. I mean, if you win your regular season, you get the safety net of the NIT. And yeah, you look at that and go, oh, well, Marshall played them. That's great. But Marshall also had an opportunity to get itself in the NIT as a safety net. And again, no one is aspiring. That's the best way. No one sits there and goes, man, I hope we get in the NIT. I hope we get on the NIT. No, you're like, hey, can't get in the NCAA tournament, but man, it's great to get another opportunity and play in the NIT. Yeah, NIT's not the destination you're aiming for, but it's not a bad landing spot. Texter writes in and says, I don't think Marshall deserved to be there. They lost when it counted. Yeah, they did. Unfortunately, they lost when it counted. And when I say they lost when it counted, all the team had to do was win the last regular season game and clinch that NIT bid as a safety net. As a safety net. And it doesn't matter if they deserve to be there or not. They won their regular season title, so that affords them the opportunity to continue the season, if so choosing. And, of course, unless you're North Carolina, most teams that are going to be invited to the NIT, are going to say, yeah, we'll come, because it's a solid tournament. It's not a bad tournament to be in. It's not one of those you look down upon, unless you're certain people I know. And I reminded that person the other day that, look, your favorite team won the thing here several years ago as well. So it's not that bad to be in that tournament. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Now, am I going to get NIT swag? If Marshall would ever get in the NIT and win it, am I going to get NIT swag? I don't know if I'm going to do that. I don't know if I'm going to head down to my local sporting goods store and buy NIT championship swag. I don't know if I'm going to do that. But as far as being in it, yeah, it's that's a banner that you hang up with a little pride. I would put the NIT championship banner above all others except the NCAA tournament. I would put that above. CBI, put that above that. CIT, I would put that way above that. The banners you put up with pride are your regular season conference championship, tournament championship, and then you put up the championship in the NCAA or the NIT. And I get it. You put the banner up that, hey, you're a participant. Yeah, okay, that's cool. You put the banner, hey, we were NCAA tournament participant. Yeah, that's cool. I get that. Honestly, I get that. You know what? I have won some honorable mentions over the years, and what I do, I put those on the resume just to pad the resume a little bit. Yeah, and I got honorable mention here. I didn't win, but they gave me an honorable mention certificate. I put that on the resume. Yeah, just pad it a little bit. I didn't win. I got honorable mention. But it goes on the resume, and I get it. You just pad it. You put it up there. Hey, we've been in the NCAA tournament 30-some times. Kentucky, we've been in the NCAA tournament, was it 70 times? I think it's 70. Of course, you flash those numbers. But at the end of the day, I'm not sitting there going, and oh, by the way, I was in the CBI. Yeah, we were in the CBI. Sure, you flash it, but I'm not feeling good about that. Absolutely. Now, the thing here about this is, if there was some absolute value to that, absolute value. If Tavion Kinsey was maybe 15 points shy of, I don't know, breaking John Elmore's all-time scoring mark, would you take that postseason opportunity? Well, you set the precedent when John Elmore was shy of Skip Henderson's scoring mark. You set that precedent, so you would have to take that. You would have to. Different administration, but still, you would have to take that opportunity to do that. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. First break coming up. We'll give you a chance to be a part of the program today here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
It's Monday, start of your week. Hope it was good. I hope the rest of it's going to be just as good. If it was bad today, well, let's make that better. I'm your host, Paul Swann. This is The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Our text line is 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. I love this text I just got. Texter wrote in and said, it would be great if the consequence was, if you win the NIT, you could still, some kind of way, have an opportunity to slide in, play a team in the NCAA that may or may not still have a bye. Now, that would constitute and be March Madness. I'm going to build off of that. What if? I don't think this would ever fly, but what if you won the national championship, you won the national championship in the NCAA tournament, the ball is tipped, there you are, we're playing one shining moment, and then I don't know, the NWO's music kicks, and there's the winner of the NIT challenging you to a game. Wouldn't it be something? We had a Champions League? Now I would be interested. What if we had a Champions League here? If you won the NCAA tournament, if you won the NIT, if you won the CBI, or if you won the Basketball Classic, you won one of those four, you meet mid-April, and let's say the NCAA winner gets the Basketball Classic winner. That's one bracket. And the NIT winner has to play the CBI winner. And then the winners of those two will meet for the College Champions Cup. Is that going to work? Probably not. I would be down for it, though. Absolutely. I would be down for it. Just something super disruptive. Could you imagine? You can imagine if you had if you win the NIT, you get it's like Money in the Bank. If you win the Money in the Bank match, WWE, you get to cash in your contract at any time to take on whatever champion you want. And so you win Money in the Bank, and then you get to challenge Roman Reigns. Think about it. Would that be fun for college basketball? Absolutely. And then all of a sudden, the NIT is like, oh, okay, so if we win the NIT, we get a shot at the NCAA champion for, I don't want to say the title, but you can have like the College Cup, sort of like soccer. Just have the Champions Cup. I don't know. Be like a consolation match. I like it, though. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. If they ever expand the NCAA tournament, I anticipate a few more teams would have opportunities to participate. Could you imagine? Could you imagine a few more teams get the opportunity? If you expand, because you have 64, but then you have the first four, which you can say they're NCAA tournament games. You can absolutely say that. But at the same time, are they really? Are they really? I mean, you're playing in is honestly what you're doing. You're playing in to get into the tournament. Which, that's fine. You treat all the participants as if they're in the tournament. But are you really in the tournament? I mean, we don't even fill out brackets. I don't know anyone that fills out first four matchups in the bracket. So if we're not filling the bracket out with your game, are you really in the tournament? I say no. To play in game. That's what it is. And that's fine. It gives teams an opportunity. My pet peeve, though, is if you win your conference tournament, if you win the auto bid, if you got an auto bid to the NCAA tournament and you win it, doesn't matter your tournament. Doesn't matter your conference. If you win it, you shouldn't have to play a first four game. You should instead get into the regular bracket. Absolutely. There's no, okay, we're going to Dayton. We're only going to Dayton to play in if you're the last four in, and I don't care if you're an auto bid winner from a conference that's maybe a little down the list, down the rung. Doesn't matter. You win your conference championship. You should be in the tournament. You shouldn't have to do a play in game. So if you're one of the final four teams in, that's who you should be putting these first four matchups together with. You have 4 games, 8 participants. This should be the final 8 teams in. It will never fly. It will never fly. Because if you look at it, some of these teams belong there, and some of these teams don't. But if you look at how the NCAA respects the power conferences more, the bigger conferences, I would think that to be completely fair, to make it look as Because you could probably make a lot of money if you get a couple more name teams in Dayton. I mean, you do a great job already in Dayton, but think of it this way. To add some value to winning your tournament, winning your auto bid, if you're a bubble team, if you're one of the few teams that have to be slotted last, I would slot those teams in the first four. I would not worry about ranking or anything. It's like if you're a team that has to be put in last, you're going in. Because once the auto bids are filled, if you're getting slotted and you're on the line, you're the last 8. I know it's you've got, usually the last 4 in, but if you've got the last 8, put them in the play-in game. Texture writes in, only a brilliant mind thinks like that. Thank you. Appreciate it. Only a creative mind thinks like that. Only a fun mind thinks like that. Thank you for building upon the idea. Oh, okay. Hey, I like it. Seriously. You should have a little element of, okay, you win the NCAA tournament, but you have to defend it now. What's one more game? Have a Champions Cup. Of course, if the NCAA tournament ever expands, then the NIT is probably toast. Seriously, if it ever happens. You remember the expansion recommendation that came out? There was a committee report that came out. It was a 40-page final report. They'll consider it. The convention now, they'll consider it. And among the recommendations, incorporate more teams in the NCAA postseason championship. The NCAA, according to this thing, should consider expanding championship brackets to accommodate access for 25% of participating teams in the sport. 25%. So the bracket right now is 68 teams. That is 19% of the sport's 350 some active members. So the tournament would have to expand about 20 teams, according to this report, to reach that 25% mark. Could that happen? Could you expand the tournament even further and make it longer? Absolutely. Or we have more play-in games. How about that? Instead of the first 4, we'd have the first 8, first 16, something like that. No, I think I like my idea better, building off what our listeners have said. NIT winner gets the NCAA tournament winner. You're playing for a different title. Yeah, you can still be the national champion, but it's a Champions League. You're playing for the Champions Cup. More coming up. It's The Drive, ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Our phone line this hour for our text, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Welcome back to today's edition of The Drive here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. I like this time of the year also. Not only do we have March Madness to get into, we've got, of course, NFL, the tampering period, a couple items already coming out. Bengals fans, veteran safety Von Bell signing with the Carolina Panthers. That is according to a source of Jeremy Fowler's from ESPN. Also, the Atlanta Falcons, according to the NFL Network, have agreed to terms with Cincinnati Bengals safety Jesse Bates III. The deal is expected to be 4 years, $64.02 million, worth $16 million annually, making Bates the 4th highest paid safety in the league. The deal is front-loaded, loaded, as he'll earn $23 million in the first year and $36 million in the first two. And the Bengals are re-signing, according to the NFL Network. Jermaine Pratt is going to have a 3-year, $21 million deal. So he's going to get $10.35 million in his first year and $15.15 million over 2 years. Third-round draft pick of the Cincinnati Bengals in 2019. He started 54 games. So, keep an eye on who's going to be signing where. That's going to be, at least the next few days, interesting to see. Also, as far as sort of file this in, we know, but we got to talk about it anyway. Earlier today on Twitter, David Early made the announcement that he's entering the transfer portal. Now, earlier, a few weeks ago, David Early was no longer on the team. And the reason given was personal reasons. So he's been unavailable a few weeks ago. It was stated that he was no longer with the team for personal reasons. And so 3 years in, Logan High School product is out transferring. And he wrote, as everyone does now on Twitter, in the notepad, screenshot, because who would pay the money to write 4,000 characters on Twitter? Who would pay that monthly fee? I'm not. Thankfully, he didn't put blessed in his, you know how usually you get those, the blessed emoji? No, thankfully David didn't do that. David said, first, I would like to thank God for all the blessings over my family and my life. Without God, I wouldn't be where I am today. I want to start off by saying thanks to Coach Dan and the rest of the coaching staff for giving me the opportunity to play the game that I love at Marshall University. Lastly, I want to thank my teammates for the great times and battles we have went through together. The past 3 years, Marshall has allowed me to grow and create numerous relationships I will have forever. With that being said, I will be entering my name into the transfer portal. Thank you, Marshall. Green heart emoji. So that's the first name we see in the transfer portal. Of course, I'm not surprised by this one. Will we see any more names in the transfer portal? Will Marshall be actively searching the transfer portal for the next season? That's going to be a big question to talk about over the next few weeks. Will Marshall become more active in the transfer portal? And that has been an item, a bone to pick, contention with some fans, that Marshall's not as active in the transfer portal as it should be. And that's Dan D'Antoni's style. He likes to recruit players that are going to spend a career with Marshall University. I just don't know if that is going to be the path forward for a lot of institutions. It'd be great if you could look at someone on senior day and go, they stayed their entire career at Marshall University. Can you think about that for a minute? How the transfer portal has ultimately changed how we think about players. Honestly, years ago, if you would have said, hey, we're going to have an opportunity to go play some more postseason basketball, and we'll get some of our young guys some more reps and get them some experience, and I would have said, that's not a bad idea. That's not necessarily a bad idea. Now you look at that and say to yourself, okay, that's great. You want to get some playing time for a lot of these guys, but are they really going to be here next year? Or are you going to bring some new players in the transfer portal? I mean, football is a little different. You have people who opt out of the bowl game, and that's for whatever reason. But it's not as if you announce the bowl game and then 20 or 30 players are dropping out, majority of your players. And I hope that we can just put our hands around this transfer portal and get it to the point where it still allows players the opportunity and the freedom to make decisions based on situation. Also, where it benefits the player, but it also benefits the team and doesn't necessarily impact the team. I hope that we get to that point here where it's a lot better. We manage it better. It can be very helpful because ultimately, don't forget, the transfer portal giveth and it also taketh away. So that was sort of the other basketball news that we had going into this. And of course, I've got to mention that Marshall's softball team is now 21-3. I don't know if you knew that. The Thundering Herd 21-3. And going to be now opening up Sun Belt play at Appalachian State, 5 p.m. on Friday. And one other item, if you didn't know this, the baseball had a match against Ohio State set for Tuesday up at Gilmart Ballpark. Now, Ohio State, Marshall aren't going to play, if you didn't know, tomorrow because cold temperatures are in the forecast. So the 1 p.m. match on Wednesday still set to be played at Gilmart Ballpark. And that, I think, you're caught up on. Quick timeout, and we will wrap it up here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Our final segment of today's edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. Thanks for tuning in. We'll have full coverage of March Madness. Starting tomorrow, we've got the first four. We have got all of the action leading up to the championship, and that's right here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. We'll have more details for you tomorrow, but first four's coming up, and then we get into the tournament. So guess what? Thursday and Friday, my two favorite sports days of the year, because I'm just going to kick back. Unbeknownst to management, I'm going to be kicking back, and I'm just going to be watching basketball. I won't have a show on Thursday or Friday, so I hate that. But on the other side of that is I'm just going to sit back. I'm going to watch games. You're going to be able to listen to all the games. If you have an opportunity to tune in, please do so. We'll have it this year. Also, we'll be able to stream it this year, so you can listen to the stream on our app. If you haven't downloaded that, go ahead and get that. I was reminding someone that we used to be able to stream the games, but we had to sign up for it first. We had to sign up, and then we got let in. And we had something called a boss button. When the boss came by, you hit the boss button, and it opened up this fake spreadsheet. It would close the video player out. I don't think we've gotten to that point yet. We don't do that anymore. But there was the boss button, which I used a lot back in my day when streaming these things first a thing. You had to actually sign up. If you wanted to watch a different game instead of the game that was going to be thrown up on network television. So if you were a fan of Kentucky and West Virginia and Kentucky were playing at the same time in different venues, which game do you think you were going to get? Yeah, you were getting West Virginia. Well, forget that. I want to watch Kentucky. So you would get that stream authorization. I'd watch the Bobcats sometimes as well. That's going to do it for this edition. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you have fun today. If not, we're going to do even better tomorrow, and make sure you do have fun. You can always find me on Twitter at Paul Swann. And don't forget the things that you can do to help me out. If you haven't already and you listen to the podcast sometimes, go ahead and hit like, follow. It might even be a subscribe button. Don't be alarmed. We're not charging you cash. not on Apple Podcast or Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. And for most of you, I know it's on Apple Podcasts, but if you want to listen on Spotify, you can do so as well. And if you want to find out more about what I'm into, you can always follow me on Twitter at Paul Swann. That's going to do it for this edition. Thanks for tuning in to The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Have a great night, everyone.
WRBC Huntington, W227BS Huntington, your flagship home of the Marshall Thundering Herd and The Drive with Paul Swann, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.